All right, here we go. Awesome. All right. So that's a way to take you guys to PEI without even leaving your house. So without further ado, just a couple of quick house rules. If you guys, if you have any conversation going in the background or anything like that, feel free to mute yourself. But if you guys have any questions or comments, feel free to pop in anytime. Jackie and Mike would be more than happy to chat with you guys. And probably the best way to view your experience is probably when you set it to gallery. So that way, either Mike or Jackie will come up as the predominant. So without further ado, I'm going to pass it over to Jackie.
Thanks. I just lost you. I can't hear you. I don't know. Did you put yourself on mute?
Nope, I'm still here.
Okay. Hi, everyone. I'm going to be your cocktail maker for the next hour, and you're more than welcome to make the cocktails along with me, or save it for later. And I'm betting probably 50% of you have already drank the liquor that I sent, even though I asked you not to, but that's okay. Mike's going to talk about the product as I make the cocktail. So they're pretty simple. They weren't too crazy. I wanted everyone to be able to follow along and know that you can, switch out some of the ingredients. Some of these drinks are familiar to a lot of you. So normally what I do is I take people all across Prince Edward Island to the wineries, the breweries, distilleries, and the cideries. So we hop in a vehicle and we drive around and have a great time, and we go see Mike. And he gives us a little tour, and he's going to do the same thing tonight as he normally does for my groups. So the next time you're in Prince Edward Island, I have all of your names. So I'll expect a call from you to go on a tour and meet us in person. So thanks for joining us. And I'm going to actually be on mute, but I can hear everyone. So if you have a question, just shout it out, and I'll help.
Awesome, thank you.
Are we welcome in PEI yet, though? Are you guys accepting anybody that's not in the bubble?
Well, no. It's really not that exciting here right now, so it's pretty quiet. It's normally quiet in the winter time, and I feel like it's an extension of that season here. We don't see too many new faces, so I'm looking forward to 2021. So then you can come and see us.
Last year, I went with my husband to Newfoundland. It was one of the best vacations we ever had. We went to PI many times, but Newfoundland, it's a different world.
Yeah.
Oftentimes, I think people group Atlantic Canadian provinces, and they're all the same. And all 4 Atlantic Canadian provinces are nothing alike. They're all so individual that it's hard to pick just one, or you think you're going to come out and see it all. You can't see it all in a week. So.
And we camped all the way, wasn't a hotel or anything, camped all the way through. It was one of the best experiences we ever had.
Oh, cool.
Brave. I'll let Mike take over now and
Mike.
do his little.
Okay, so hello folks, my name is Mike Beamish, and together with my wife Carol, we own and operate Deep Roots Distillery in Warren Grove, PEI, just outside of Charlottetown. Just to give you a bit of the background, we actually grew up, both of us in the Ottawa area, and lived and worked in Ottawa. I worked for the federal government in IT actually. And I know you folks are kind of in the IT industry, and I can remember I was working for the department I was in. They received the first PC ever delivered to the federal government. This is back in 1983, and a whole bunch of people were gathered around this box, looking at this piece of machinery coming out like it was something magic. And it's amazing how time flies. Anyway, we had a property in Castleman. A lot of you folks may know Castleman, between Ottawa and Montreal. And we commuted back and forth, and we did that for several years and just got tired of the commute. And in the meantime, a job had come open in PEI to teach IT at a community college. And so we jumped on it. We moved to PEI. We were able to buy 10 acres of land, 10 minutes of downtown. It suited our lifestyle perfectly. And my wife actually had family in Hemingford. You folks probably know Hemingford, Quebec. And they're still there. They grow apples. And so when we moved to PEI, we were looking for some crop to have as a hobby farm and on our 10 acres. So we kind of had apples on the brain, but we did a bit of research and we actually come to find out that even though PEI right now is known for potatoes, you think of PEI, export crop, everybody thinks potatoes. Actually, at the turn of the 19th century, our biggest export crop was actually apples. They had found niche markets for them in Great Britain. And of course, World War I came along and commercial shipping stopped, and they never got the markets back after that. So we planted apples, 1990, I guess we planted them all, and we sold apples U-pick, and we had 5 children. And I tell people, if we had stayed in the Ottawa area, we probably would have kept with our 2 children. But moving to PEI, just the lifestyle is so much different. Anyway, we had 5 kids, and it was a family affair when we did the U-pick, and yeah. So, and I worked full time, and of course my wife worked full time in the house. And along comes retirement about 8 years ago, and I was looking for something different to do than selling apples. We were getting a little bit tired. And you know, in the fall when the apples are ready, there's you get a little bit of wind, and you lose a lot of apples to the ground. They come off easy when they're fully ripe. And in North America right now, there's a health regulation. The CFIA have a regulation that is as a business. I can't make juice from apples that have fallen to the ground unless I pasteurize it. And it's the risk of E. coli. Apple hits the ground, picks up E. coli, you crush it, make juice, and people get sick. So, and the problem with it is that a pasteurizer is very expensive. So for a large commercial orchard, it makes sense. They invest in a pasteurizer, they got hundreds of thousands of pounds of apples, they make juice, they're good. But with a small hobby farm, I got about 3 acres of trees, it didn't make economic sense. So every fall, you know, I'm dealing with all these drops, and we just keep grass in our orchard. We're somewhat organic. We were certified, but now we're dropped that. But we still do some of the techniques, but we just keep grass. We don't use a weed killer. So a lot of the apples that fall, you pick them up every day before the bugs get to them. About 70% of your drops are perfect. And but because they hit the ground, I was supposed to throw them in the compost. And so it was always working in the back of my head that I've got to find some use for those apples, some economic uses of throwing them out. And as things often happen, by chance one night I was reading somewhere that said if you ferment and distill your apple juice, then you can use any apple. And the reason is alcohol at 17% and above kills bacteria. And so distilling is the key, because when you ferment apple juice, the most you can get it to, just the raw juice, is about 5 or 6% alcohol. But by distilling, I bring it up to 30, 40, 50, 60% alcohol. So again, anything over 17% kills bacteria. That's why if you have a bottle of wine and you forget about it, in a few weeks it'll probably go bad, because bacteria will get in it and turn it to vinegar. If you have a bottle of rum, 40%, and you forget about it, you may lose a bit to evaporation, but it'll never go bad, because the bacteria can't live in the rum. So that was my aha moment. Take my ground apples, use them in my distillery, and so that's what we did. We did the investigation, took some training, and opened the distillery. And one of the key pieces for us, I had mentioned that we had 5 kids. So you know, when the kids left, our pockets were pretty shallow. So we weren't willing to take on this kind of a venture where we needed a huge investment. And so we did a lot of work to find the kind of equipment that we could use that was affordable and fit our budget, so I could still sleep at night, right? Nothing worse than having, starting a business in retirement, have it fail, then I'm up at the donut shop looking for a job to pay my bills. So it was important to us to be able to do this on a specific budget, and we did. And we've been growing a little bit each year. And so having told you the story about how we started this, and it kind of came from our apple orchard, our sort of flagship product is our apple brandy. And we collect our apples, crush them to make a juice. We ferment the juice into a hard cider or an apple wine, and then we distill that wine to extract the alcohol. And we basically concentrate the alcohol up to about 50%, in fact. And then we age it. I don't know if you can see it in my barrels in the video, but we have aging barrels, and we age our brandy for 2 years. And in fact, that's where it gets its color. So all alcohol, I don't know if you know it or not, but all alcohol out of the still looks perfectly white, no matter what you put in the still to distill. And with the brandy, we age it 2 years in an oak barrel, and that's where it acquires that color. And yeah, so now that's one of our apple-based alcohols. A lot of the other ones are made from different ingredients, because once you get the equipment and the know-how, you can basically make almost any kind of alcohol. So, but that was the reason for starting. The second one we made, and of course I think most of you are in Quebec, or a lot of you, and so you're very familiar with. I know I'm not going to say it right, but cerclage. It's a maple liqueur, famous in I guess in Canada, in Quebec specifically. But we made our own maple liqueur. My son's got a small maple syrup operation here in PEI, so we kind of got the idea. Let's make our own, and that's our maple liqueur. And that's been our biggest seller. It's with all of our liqueurs, it was important for us to incorporate our taste. And I don't like liqueurs that are overly sweet. There's some really syrupy, and so we've tried to find a balance. So our maple is 25% alcohol, but when you enjoy it, you get the full sense of alcohol and a nice balance with the maple syrup. And yeah, and that's one that, most of the other ones we've done a lot of practicing, trying this, trying that, and the maple, we just struck it lucky. We just tried tried it, and it was perfect. And we, like I said, it's been our best seller.
So the first drink that Jackie made, Mike, was that the spiced apple? Is that what Jackie made first?
I think it was some maple, I believe.
Oh yes, that makes sense because you got the maple syrup.
Yeah, a maple martini kind of rings a bell. Yeah. Yeah, I guess I should. I can't see Jackie. Should I put it on gallery view?
Jackie's
I'm assuming she's making it, and I can't.
She made the first drink. I was just.
Oh, she did. Okay, so I missed all that fun. So.
It's a maple martini.
Maple martini. Okay.
Nice and simple. Paired with some maple cookies, because you can never have too much maple.
Okay. So I will tell you one more thing before I move off the maple. But I did tell you my son does maple syrup here in PEI, and we do apple brandy, and we age our brandy in barrels, Hungarian oak barrels. And this is not a new idea. I've seen other places do it, but they'll age maple syrup in used bourbon barrels, and I think I've seen some in used whiskey barrels. And we said, well, you know what? In our family, we do apple brandy. We use it in oak barrels. Let's use one of my used oak barrels. And he did, and he aged his maple syrup. So it's our brandy barrel aged maple syrup. And it's a food product. It's got less than 1% alcohol. So that's the key in Canada. If you're less than 1%, you sell it as a food. So you don't pay the alcohol tax. So yeah, just out of curiosity. So you moving on to the apple, Jackie? Okay.
I think she is, because she's got two apples on her board. So.
Okay, that's a good clue.
That's a good clue.
So yeah, the next one we made was we call it spiced apple liqueur, and it's actually 33% alcohol, so it's strong enough that you can mix it. You can use it as a cocktail. People mix it with ginger ale, or in the fall with sweet cider, and it's kind of a winter drink. And it's our apples that are infused in alcohol, and we add apple pie flavors. So the spice is like cinnamon, nutmeg, and then we use a demerara sugar for the sweetener, and it makes a full, a fairly strong flavor. Like it's a good alcohol scent, but you get lots of flavors happening. Whereas the maple is maple and alcohol, pretty simple. Whereas this one, you're getting the spices and you're getting the demerara sugar, and yeah, it's fairly versatile. And again, it's not overly sweet. It's 33 and it's 33% alcohol. Okay.
Awesome.
Just carry on.
Yeah, carry on. Yeah, she's just still making the drink. She's pouring the tea over the ice right now.
Oh, I see her up in the
give you
corner
guys a
there now.
play-by-play here.
Okay, so I'll carry on, and she can catch up. So the next one we made is a PEI liqueur. So and with all of our liqueurs, we use real ingredients. So we use real syrup in our maple and apples and blueberries. And that's one thing that we try. You know, all craft distilleries are trying to set themselves apart from the big players, and that's one way we do it. Right? We've got to make things different. We're not competing with Seagram's or Crown Royal, and you can't. So we have to find some niche, and it's this is full. All these flavors come from the actual fruit, and so we got a blueberry liqueur. And actually, the same with all of these. People ask me how to drink them. And typically, people can drink them however they enjoy them. But typically with liqueurs, they will drink them ice cold with no ice. So they'd put it in the freezer. If anybody's been to Italy or France, limoncello, that kind of thing, they'll actually put it in the freezer so it's ice cold, and you have a little shot of it after dinner without ice. Because then you're getting the full impact of the flavors without being watered down. And yeah, so, and then I think the last, before the absinthe, one she's going to talk about or do a recipe for, is our Cameris. And I'm not sure if you've come across this. In English, it's called Haskap. It's made with a berry called Haskap. And it's native to northern Canada, but not typically to our regions. But they've discovered that it's got a lot of antioxidants and vitamins and minerals. And so they're looking for ways to get it into the food stream. And like I said, it's been around for forever. A couple hundred years ago, if people were discovering and traveling through the north, they would have come across these bushes and said, no, we're going to leave that right where it is. Right? They had found blueberry plants. They said, oh, these are good berries. They took them home and propagated them, and we got blueberries. But these ones are extremely sour. And so there's been some programs at different universities, agriculture research stations, take a whole bunch of different varieties, cross them, and come up with some edible berries. And that's what they've done. And these are planted quite a bit now along southern Quebec, throughout New Brunswick. It's kind of catching on. And in French, it's Cameris. I know I'm probably not saying that right, but it would sound better when you were to say it. But we chose a French name. It just sounds better. Haskap. You tend to spit at people when you say it. So it just has a nicer ring to it. So yeah. And one other thing I'm going to, and I meant to say this before, just out of, if I'm telling you too much, somebody just give me some kind of signal.
No, it's good. We're doing good.
I'm getting carried away.
No, we're doing great.
This is a retirement thing for me. So I tend to enjoy it and tend to, carry on a bit. But people often ask me, so brandy, how do you drink brandy? Well, most of my other products, I keep them in a cooler when people come to sample, so they're cold. The brandy I keep on the shelf, and the main reason for that is that if you think of some old movies you may have seen when after dinner the women clean up and the men retire to the library, sit down in their club chairs with their cigar and a brandy snifter, and they will swirl it around and hold it in their hand, the palm of their hand. So when you ferment fruit and distill it, there's flavor compounds that stick with the alcohol right till it's bottled. And that's when you ferment fruit, ferment and distill fruit. And those flavor compounds get released when they're exposed to a little bit of heat. So you're starting out with it at room temperature, you're putting it in a brandy snifter, you're warming it ever so slightly, so those flavor compounds are getting released. and it's influencing your tasting of it. And that's the reason brandies typically are drank at room temperature without any ice. You know, the thing with scotches, well, they don't have the same, you know, barley or whatever else, wheat, rye, they don't have those flavor compounds in it, so it doesn't apply.
So Jackie got the second drink out. Looks wonderful. And so I guess she's gonna start making the third one.
Okay.
Are we allowed to have a drink? I'm just out of curiosity.
Of course, yeah, drink yourself. Of course, that's why everything was sent to you guys a week in advance.
Yeah, I was like waiting for like a mixed drinks and everything.
No.
Sorry.
No worries.
Cheers.
Yeah.
Cheers.
Cheers, everyone.
Yes. Which one did you try? Roy? We're just making the apple tea. What did you try?
Sorry, John, your internet was kind of laggy. What was that again?
Oh, I was asking Royce which one he tried. We're trying the we're making the apple tea one.
I'm having the maple martini.
Oh, good.
I started at the top. It's
There we
quite
go.
good, actually.
Did you use vermouth or did you use your best balsamic?
I used my best. I used my best available balsamic. Actually.
Good. A lot of people don't have vermouth and they don't know that you can actually substitute it with balsamic or white wine vinegar, stuff like that. So your company or your guests will never know.
Try the one that is up 70, but if you're not really liking liquor, licorice kind of stuff, like that's different. I'll say it this way.
Okay, so maybe can I carry on this or?
Yes, of course.
Yeah, sure.
I'm just going to make the
Other
mojito
interesting
now,
things.
Mike.
So a couple of things when you're a small distillery like me, and I still have to pay my bills, so I still got to make some money, but it's not the key reason. I've got my pension, so I'm still going to have food on my table. So we can kind of play around a little bit, and a couple of these projects have been kind of fun. So I've done 3 of them, and I call them my scrounging projects. So one of them is we had made this product. It's called a blueberry eau de vie. And all we have left is a few minutes. We had made a fairly big batch. And it was a single release. There's a local winemaker had made a wild blueberry wine, and he wasn't real happy with it. And he didn't want to label it, put his name on it, have people buy it and say, his wines are only so-so. So he was going to throw it out, and he had 2,000 liters of this blueberry wine. So I said, well, don't throw it out. Let me buy it from you, give you a little bit so you don't lose everything. And I distilled it. So I took the blueberry wine, distilled it, and bottled it. And when you do that, the technical name of this alcohol is eau de vie. So any fruit wine that's distilled and bottled is eau de vie. And it's not overly common in Canada. You see a few, but not a lot. It's very common in Europe. And different countries sometimes have a different name. In Germany, they call it schnapps. And not to be confused with North American schnapps, there's a liqueur company in North America called schnapps, and they make sweet liqueurs. But the term schnapps in Germany refers to eau de vie. It's a fruit wine. It could have been cherry wine, peach, whatever, that's been distilled, and it's a raw alcohol from that wine. And so it was kind of like I said, it was going to get thrown out, and I got to salvage it. And met with pretty good success. Another one we did, it's in an ice wine bottle, and we call it iced apple liqueur. There's a local orchard that was making hard cider for a few years, and things didn't go well, and he ended up closing his business. And I bought a couple of pieces of equipment from him. And when I went to get a tank, he had it filled with an iced apple wine or an iced cider. And again, it was destined to be dumped down the drain. So I bought the bulk cider, iced cider, and my license doesn't let me in. I think it's the same in most provinces. My license lets me sell spirits and liqueurs. I can't make and sell a cider or make and sell a wine, but I can buy a wine and modify it to a liqueur, which is what I did. So I bought this, and I fortified it. I brought it from an 8% sweet wine to a 23% liqueur, and it actually came out like a sour green apple taste, kind of a very, very unique. And again, that's kind of one of the fun things you can do, right? You can do these one-ups that a bigger company couldn't take the time to invest in. And the last one we did really recently is our gin. You know, we were kind of behind. I know pretty well every craft distillery in Canada has gins. It's huge, eh? So so we experimented with one last year, about a year and a half ago. But we couldn't quite, I don't know why, we couldn't quite get the taste we liked. It was too sharp, the botanicals were too forward. And so it was sitting in a tank just waiting for time that we could play with it. And in the meantime, there's a local mead maker, so a meadery. And they had made a bunch of different meads, and they were selling them, but they ended up closing. They moved on to a different venture. And they had bulk mead in tanks. So they sold it to me, and again, I distilled it. There's several ones that I distilled. But the first one that we did was a beet mead. So they made a mead with honey, and they infused it with beets. And they had that in a bulk tank. I distilled it, and I said, well, let's just see what's going to happen if I take a little bit and a little bit of our gin that we didn't like, and we combine them, and voila, we had a pretty good gin. No, I shouldn't say that. Very good gin. And really smoothed out the botanicals, and we've had really good feedback on this one. So that's it. Like I said, the kind of fun things you can do when you don't really have to focus hard on the bottom line. You can do these little projects. So, yeah.
Mike, did you ever make any type of hand sanitizer or anything like that? I know a lot of distilleries were doing that with COVID.
Yeah, we did.
Oh, awesome.
So again, just tell me to stop. But you know, we're taking a couple months. I was in Florida, and my wife had to come back to work, and I was hanging on there for a little while. And anyway, March came along, and bang, you know, we had to start to look at leaving. And I came home March 19th, went into isolation in my distillery. It's not we're not heated here, but it's insulated. And I had to go in isolation. So I said, well, put me in here. What better place could you be spent for 2 weeks than in a distillery, right? I had lots of access to drinks. And anyway, I had a couple of phone calls from local businesses saying, we need sanitizer here at a distillery. Have you made any? And I said, well, no, you know what? I haven't, but I should, because I'm sitting on alcohol. I got tanks of it up in my other room. And so we did. We went down that road, and we put out our hand sanitizer. And yeah, it was extremely busy for a couple of months, and until a lot of other companies started to catch on. And we're still making it and selling it, but just kind of in smaller quantities now.
Do you deliver though? Like, let's say if it's anywhere in Quebec or something like that, can you deliver?
So no, well, I shouldn't have said no so quick. Yeah, we do have the ability to ship, and you know, the whole shipping thing. You know, each province liquor commission controls rules. Well, all provinces say you cannot ship spirits and liqueurs to individuals in another province. And so I was following the rules until I come to find out that I'm the only distillery in Atlantic Canada that wasn't shipping. So I jumped on the bandwagon, even though the laws on the books still say we're not supposed to ship to another province. And so we added an e-commerce site to our website there about a month and a half ago. So we do ship it now, and we ship this product. And we use food grade alcohol, so it won't get recalled. And yeah, it's 80% as well. A lot of them don't make it to 80%, but we do.
Do you mind after this call, like send your contact information, so like if we want something to get, like we can get it?
Sure. I guess Noah probably will send out our web address and maybe email too.
Yeah, my goal is tomorrow. I'll send something out for the folks at ICA, and then Angela and Greg will send something out for the folks for IDC. So you'll get an email tomorrow morning with some of this information and stuff like that. So that's a great question. Thank you.
Okay. And our most recent product, we just released this about 6 days ago, and it's what we call, I don't know if you can see that. I guess.
Yeah, we can see it. The vodka.
So it's what we call Ocean Pearl Vodka, and So we, you know, PEI, one of our major or significant exports, and we're one on all four, is our oysters. PEI oysters are well known. And so we tried to look for ways that we could marry one of our products with an important aquaculture product. And we worked with a local organization and come up with a process to filter our vodka using oyster shells, crushed oyster shells. And that's where that name came from. It's our Ocean Pearl vodka. And you don't really get any oyster taste or aromas, but it's just part of the cleaning. It cleans the, you know, vodkas are supposed to be very clean tasting, no flavor, so it's helped us do that. Yeah, that's one we had fun doing.
Russian, I would love to try it. And I don't even drink vodka, but I would love to try that.
Oh yeah, okay, thanks. Yeah. So, and am I still going to keep talking, or do you want me to?
Yeah,
Jack?
for sure.
Okay. So, so another one we made. So you can see we're doing a lot of. You know, we do some like the gin, the vodka. You know, we try to do other ones too that are not standard. And this one we did. It's called Honey Spirit. And so we got our hands on a bunch of honey, and we fermented it. We made a mead, and then we distilled the mead. And we just distilled it to 40%, so it's a spirit. And we wanted to add a bit of color without adding any sweetness. So we wanted it to be a spirit. And so we aged it 6 months in an oak barrel. So you know, we aged the brandy for 2 years, and it got that nice dark amber. And this got, well, it looks like honey, you know. And which we hadn't planned on looking just like that, but it can be a bit deceiving because people see it on the shelf and they see honey spirit, and then they see the color and it looks like honey, but it's not sweet. It's got a bit of an aroma of honey, but it drinks like a whiskey. You know, it's got the full burn. But we've really found a niche for that. It's nice on ice, but we've started to make margaritas with it because it has a bit of the the tequila experience in your mouth. And we've come up with a recipe for margaritas, and it makes excellent margaritas. And that's another one that we kind of played around with. And one more, I guess I'll, I know I'm throwing a lot at you. We're going to do the absinthe, I think, at the end.
That's correct,
But,
yep.
Yeah, one we did, this was our third product. We were still trying to get ourselves on the shelf. And it's called Island Tide, and it's our version of a PEI moonshine. You know, everybody's using moonshine these days as marketing terms. And of course, technically, we can't be selling moonshine because moonshine means it's illegally made and illegally sold. And but that's our replica of what they used to make in PEI for moonshine many years ago. And a lot of people don't know why the PEI was the last province in Canada to drop prohibition. And I believe it was in the early 60s, so it wasn't all that long ago. And yeah, so we're making up for it. I think we've already got, we counted them today, PEI is 145,000 people.
Wow.
So we're up to about 9 breweries, 3 distilleries, about 4 wineries. So we're really, we've got some catch up to do.
And Mike, in a non-COVID world, what's your tour season look like? Do you guys run from May till September? Or do you go all the way to October?
Yeah, so for us here, typically we'll open mid-June.
Okay, cool.
We really don't get a lot. And we do by appointment before that. But, you know, it wouldn't be worthwhile for me to hire somebody to sit at the tasting bar to wait. So mid-June, we start to get, the preschool, like the tours that don't have kids at school still. And so they'll start to travel in mid-June. And then, of course, July and August is our busy time. And in fact, September and October are not bad, especially September. You get a lot of the older people traveling at that time when things aren't as busy. And the challenge, of course, for a place like PEI, because we are so small, is having enough things open that if people come in September, there's things for them to do. But you'll find a lot of businesses like me will stay open for that time. But of course, all the play things and the things geared to kids generally close Labor Day.
Yeah.
And we will actually stay open until pretty late in October because we also have the orchard. And so we use a lot of our apples in our processing, but we still sell them. People will come and buy a bag of apples, and I sell apples at the farmer's market. And so we do get some traffic for our orchard. So I'm here anyway, sorting apples and bagging apples. So I keep my doors open. So we do, and we get traffic surprisingly in October. And then we close after that. And we sell at the local liquor stores all year and at the farmer's market.
Do you do liquor stores only in PEI, or do you work with New Brunswick, Nova Scotia, and Newfoundland?
Yeah. So far we only in PEI, and it's our capacity. So I mentioned we started this as a retirement thing. We didn't want to invest over our heads, so everything we did was small, and we're growing each year. You know, the term they're using now is what we started this organically. So we wanted to grow it on our own. We didn't want influxes of investors. And then we've done that. So kind of each year, as revenue permits us, we're growing a little bit. And we're hoping now we may have turned a corner. We want to do actually a new building to give us enough space so that we can make enough to ship. So right now, we couldn't even dream of Quebec or Ontario because their minimum orders would be so big. But we could get to New Brunswick, like maybe half pallet, that kind of stuff. And but again, we would need the capacity to be able to make it. And somewhere to put it. Like right now, we're tripping over stuff in our little distillery.
And what do you guys typically do in the winter then? Do you guys do a lot of maintenance on the property?
Yeah. So I'm retired now. So the winters we're distilling. It's unfortunate I can't take you into the distillery, but one of the things that we did is we incorporated a cooling system, passive cooling system for our water, for the still. You know, when you're distilling, you've got to be running cold water constantly. The cold water cools your copper, which condenses your steam, which is your alcohol, back to a liquid. So you need a constant source of cold water. As your water's touching the copper, it's getting hot. So you got cold water in, hot water out, and that's got to continually recycle. And so typically people would either, in the old days, they would build their distillery out in the mountain next to a stream because they had a constant source of cold water. And most of them now would have a well, so they would be pulling groundwater and running that through constantly. So what we did is we actually took a barrel, a 20-gallon barrel, we filled it with cold water, and we put a sump pump in it. And we pump that cold water into the still. It does its cooling job, but then it gets hot. So that hot water gets piped out. Outside, we keep a truck radiator, and goes through the radiator. That cooling water never touches the alcohol, by the way, so it's just cooling the copper. And because when I tell people we're using a radiator, it sounds kind of doesn't sound appetizing. But anyway, so the water gets cooled in a radiator outside, so it works better spring, fall, and winter.
Yeah.
So we try not to do too much in the summer because of the energy consumption required. You know?
Yeah.
So yeah.
That's awesome. Cool.
Yeah. So yeah, that's kind of I guess you'll let me know when we want to move on to the absinthe. But
I think we're there. Jackie just got the last drink out on the table. It looks really good. I'm hungry now with that grilled cheese sandwich there.
oh yeah.
That mojito was amazing.
Oh, you had it?
I just made the mojito and it's great.
Awesome.
I highly recommend the mojito.
Cool.
Mojito. Where's the mojito?
Oh, the tea is pretty good, and the mojito, yeah, that's a number 2 for sure.
I haven't jumped on the tea yet. That's my next one.
Yeah, it's good.
That's the nightcap.
Yeah, we started with the mojito. It was good.
So so if you're ever looking for some night you're bored and you're looking for some interesting Google searching, there's whatever industry you're in, you tend to find things funny that are in your industry. Yeah, so there's actually a story out of it's out of China about 2 or 3 years ago, and where they charged some distillers there with adding the active ingredient that's found in geez, my mind's blank, the little blue pills.
Viagra?
Jack, yeah, thanks. Yeah, Viagra. I don't know why I thought you, Jack. So the active ingredient in Viagra, they were putting it in their alcohol. And so I'm not going to, you know, when people are here, we can talk about some of the puns that you could come up with, but that could be kind of a fun team building activity. See how many one-liners you could come up with. You know, the fact that they're putting Viagra in their alcohol.
Yep.
Yeah, there we go. Okay.
So on the last drink, right? The big one.
Okay, so I'll tell you what we have come to learn about absinthe. And of course, in English, you know, we stumble through it and we call it absinthe, which, you know, sounds odd even to us. And I believe Quebec French, it's absinthe, and France French is absinthe. Somebody may be able to correct me on that, but or something of that pronunciation. And so the history on this.
It's fine. It's the correct pronunciation.
I did?
Yeah, it was perfect. Yeah.
Okay. So it started its life as a medicine in Switzerland in the late 1700s. And all medicines were made using this technique. They would take a collection of herbs based on what they were looking to deal with, and they would soak it in high percentage alcohol. And high percentage alcohol has the ability to pull out oils and essences out of whatever's sitting in it. You know, the prime example, if you've ever had limoncello, it's made with the peel of lemons. And so they'll take a little bit of peel and they'll soak it in alcohol. And the peel of the lemon is where all your flavor compounds are, all the oils. But the alcohol sucks those oils out. And, you know, afterwards you could take that lemon peel and you wouldn't get any lemon taste at all. It's all been sucked into the alcohol. And of course, that's how they make vanilla too, right? They soak vanilla beans in alcohol and it sucks out the vanilla flavors. And so they're making a medicine. And a couple of the potential uses, they were looking at stomach issues. And but one of its first actual uses was they were giving it to French troops that were being sent to South Africa. And they were given a ration of absinthe every day to try to prevent malaria. And so, of course, being down there for a few years, and they were getting a shot of this, and they're typically high alcohol. So mine's 72. Most of them are 65, 70, 75% alcohol. And they were given a ration of that every day. You know, after a couple of years, they came back to France and said, geez, we enjoyed that as a beverage. And so that's when the beverage industry started to make it. So it went from, you know, purely in the medicinal field, became a beverage. And became hugely popular in the mid-1800s, because in Paris at that time, that was a hotbed of the art community. Van Gogh and all those. If you were anybody, you were in Paris, and they had quite a culture club going on. And word got out that one of the herbs that they use in the production of this is called wormwood, Artemisia absinthium. It's its Latin name. And word got out that there are traces of a hallucinogenic compound, and the compound is called thujone, which was often used in LSD, in the production of LSD in the 60s. So that wormwood has traces of thujone in it. So you can imagine at that point in history in the art community, when they found that out, it just went like wildfire. It became the drink of choice in that community. And if you had gone into any of the cafes in Paris at the time, they all would have had some kind of fountain on the table. Much more elaborate than this. If you see some old pictures, drawings especially, that they were huge. They're big silver, very ornate fountains. And basically, they held ice water. And they would fill the bowl of the fountain with ice water. And they all had taps. And when you turn the tap on, the water would drip out, a drop at a time. And they went so far as actually designing specific absinthe glasses. And this is one of the original designs. And but they always had a hollow stem. So in the cafe, they would fill to the bottom of the glass with absinthe, which means your stem was full, and that was your measured serving, instead of using a jigger or a shot glass, you know. So that's how they measured your serving. And then there would be sugar cubes, of course, on the table. Oh yeah, and they would all have their own spoon. Each cafe would have had their own specially designed spoon with little slots on it. And they would put the spoon on the glass, and they would take 1 or 2 cubes, put it on the spoon, and put it underneath the tap, turn the water on. So the water's dripping onto the sugar cube, dissolving the sugar and going into the drink. So they could have easily taken a teaspoon of sugar, a cup of ice water, poured them in, stirred them, and they would have had the same drink, right? But it just wasn't quite the same thing. It's sitting around at a smoky table and everybody, enjoying a drink like that. So it was part of the experience was doing it this way. Yeah. But basically, sugar and water is what they were doing. And it does get milky. And I should add too, if you're familiar with absinthe, it was banned for many years, and because of the fact that they believed there was a lot of thujone in the drink. But as it turns out, with better testing techniques in our labs now, they know that the amount of that chemical that gets through the process to the very end is minimal, and so not really enough. So a lot of the belief that they were seeing a green fairy or that they were hallucinating, a lot of it was a myth. And there may have been some, small amounts, but the problem is wormwood is bitter, and in fact, it's been used in history at times. The mothers would mix a tea with wormwood and feed it to the kids to try to drive out worms if the kids had worms, and because of the bitterness of the tea. So if you made absinthe and put enough wormwood in it to try to get some of that chemical out, it would be too bitter to drink. And if you do, or when you do try mine, you'll notice, especially on the finish, you're going to get a little bit of bitterness, and that's the wormwood that comes through. And I know for you, those of you in Quebec, I know you're probably pretty familiar with Pernod, maybe Pastis, and they're all similar, even as far as not Sambuca, but Ouzo, and they're all similar and use a similar herb mixture, except the wormwood. The one difference is, and why is this one green? Well, because it was being made as a medicine. After they distilled it, so it came out of the still, clear, like Ouzo does and Pernod, but they do a second infusion to get more of those oils out of those herbs, and it's that second infusion that's given the absinthe its color. So it's pulling these greens out of the leaves of the various herbs. And so it'd be the main difference. If you tried that, you say, geez, that's similar to Pernod, similar flavor profile. Not as sweet as Pernod, but it's similar. But that's the main reason. It's the second infusion of herbs.
Would people drink it without sugar, Mike?
Oh yeah. So so you'd put one cube, 2 cubes, no cubes. Old Man in the Sea. Hemingway. That was his drink of choice, straight. And so there's quite a few people will like it straight. When we do sampling here at the distillery, if anybody wants this one, we do it less, because once you get it in your mouth, it's going to stay there for a while. Yeah. 72%, and it's really powerful on the herbs, and it's going to just stay in the pores of your mouth for a while. So you're not going to taste anything else after.
Can you compare it to another family? Like it's obviously not a whiskey. Is it like is there another family that you would associate this flavor with?
Yeah, that's funny, because there is no standard for absinthe. There's standards for vodka, gin, rum, rye. There's standards published for them, and but none for absinthe. So like I said, the closest they would typically drink it as like before dinner, as I always get the term mixed up. After dinner is a digestive, or before dinner is
aperitif. Aperitif.
Yeah, is often how they would drink it. So in the late afternoon, early evening, they would have this, and then they would go for their dinner.
Wow. 72% alcohol before dinner.
Pardon me?
72% alcohol, or whatever they call that?
Yeah, well, they would. So basically, the average person, Hemingway probably was an average, but the average person would drink it 4 to 1. So 4 parts water, 1 part alcohol, and about 2 cubes. So about a teaspoon of sugar. And it does get milky. I know that's the other thing I was going to say too. But like Ouzo and Sambuca, And so this will get milky when you add a certain percentage of water, it will turn milky. And that's how you know we also use an original technique to make. We don't use flavor compound. We don't buy flavors. We use herbs. And when you use real herbs, specifically fennel, aniseed, star anise, there's oils in there, and those oils get transferred. And those oils have a certain concentration point. With enough water, they turn milky. So if you were to have this in a glass and you could add water, at one point it's going to go milky. If you add more alcohol, it's going to go back to clear. It's because of the concentration of water to oil. It's going to cause that, they call it lushing in the world of absinthe. But it's basically it's the same as ouzo does the same, and pastis and sambuca.
That's awesome.
So
Thank
if
you so
you
much.
work, I have a question.
The Turkish alcohol Ruka does something very similar, actually.
Okay, I've heard that name before. Yeah.
Raki. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah. No,
So-
I've heard that before.
So if you were to mix it, you're saying water's the way to go, but not too much water.
Yeah, but again, it's taste, right? So everybody's going to be. My son likes it 2 parts water, 1 part alcohol. I kind of like it 4. It's
Okay.
really one of those taste things, you know.
But nothing carbonated?
Not typically. No, I see someone's got a picture of the bar behind them. If you're any of your American colleagues are there, there's a drink out of New Orleans called a Sazerac, and it's famous down there. And it uses absinthe as one of the ingredients. And there's a what's the other one? Oh yeah. I just got this recipe the other day, in fact. And so what they'll often do in a bar is they'll get like some kind of mister, like a spray bottle, and they'll put the absinthe in that. Because the actual recipe for the Sazerac says, take a half an ounce of absinthe, put it in a glass, swirl it, and dump it out. Well, okay. It's $48 a bottle for a 375 ml bottle, so I would not suggest you throw it out. And so basically, a lot of the bars now, they'll take some kind of mister, and they'll just spray the inside of the glass. And then they build their cocktail. It's built with whiskey and Peychaud's bitters. I forget what else goes in it, but it's Sazerac. I got a recipe the other day for gin. So same thing, you would squirt a little bit of absinthe into the glass to coat the glass, and then you would build a cocktail with gin, a good grapefruit juice, not a cheapie, a good grapefruit juice, and and a lime or lemon, but a shot of the absinthe first, grapefruit juice, gin, and that was it.
You think chartreuse would be similar to the absinthe?
Yeah, you know what? I believe so, but I wanted to research on chartreuse because that's another old alcohol.
It's pretty common here. They have it at Burgundy Line.
Oh, okay.
I've had it before. It's quite good.
Oh yeah.
I think they make it by the monks or something like that, but it's 55%. It's
Yeah.
made by monks in the mountains or something. It's
I
very
should
potent.
read up. Yeah, I know I know about it, but I don't know what it is or what it tastes.
So, is it true that absence makes the heart grow fonder?
Yeah. Who was that? Was that Byron or one of those poets there?
I don't.
It's makes the heart grow fonder.
Well, Mike and Jackie, this has been great. I really appreciate it. Does anybody have any other questions for Mike or Jackie before we kind of pull this to an end? Because we're at the 1 hour mark, and I don't want to keep anybody's more time.
No, I think everything was so great, Mike. We really enjoyed it. I'm just bummed that there's no way for us to get it in the United States, unfortunately. So yeah, that's my big takeaway.
Yeah, one of the challenges is in Canada we're allowed wormwood.
Yeah.
We're allowed Fujone, but in the US it's 0. So I couldn't even export it. Like, if I could find somebody to import it. Now you can ship it, and hopefully they don't open it at border control.
Fair enough. Anyway, but well done. Very, very enjoyable. Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you. Yeah.
So what was everyone's favorite cocktail? The ones that were making them or had already made them?
The apple tea so far.
Oh, I didn't see who said that.
Tyler.
For me, it was the spiced apple tea. It was amazing.
Exactly.
Yes.
Yeah. Same one for me.
Pretty simple. You could do it again.
Yeah, for sure.
I didn't try the apple spiced one, but I'm gonna try that one next. So I'll let you know how it goes. But
Tastes like
otherwise, it
apple
was the
pie.
mojito. Oof, sounds delicious.
Any other questions for me?
Thank you so much, Mike. This is really helpful. And like I said, I'll send a follow-up email tomorrow so everybody has your information and your website and stuff like that.
Sure. If anybody's got any questions or specific questions about how we make these.
That sounds great.
Yeah. So Noah and team, I just want to say thanks. This is kind of fun, very different. Been a long day with webinars and all kinds of stuff going on today. So kind of a nice way to end the day, and I really enjoyed it. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Awesome.
Thank you, Insight.
Yeah, thank you very much for inviting me.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you very
Thanks
much.
for coming,
Good night.
everyone. Have a
Bye.
good evening, guys.
Bye, everybody.
Bye-bye.
Thanks. Bye now.